your information.
Done some research.
No.
Don't have anyone else on?
So.
You have Lynn over to a panelist.
Cool.
I knew Lynn would show up.
Lynn in there?
Yes.
Lynn's here, she says. Is Lynn here? Just
Lynn
text me, I'm
is-
here. Lynn here?
There she is.
I'm kidding. Hey, Lynn. Councilmember Roy. All righty, y'all. Let's call this meeting order Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022 at 6 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please take the roll?
Councilmember Blair. Councilmember Richardson.
Here.
Councilmember Crossman.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Here. Councilmember Hess.
Here.
Councilmember Roy.
Yeah.
Councilmember Kaminsky. Here. Mayor Dickinson.
Here. All righty, we'll start off with discussion items. Under A, item A, water reclamation facility update, WRF. Cody, would you like to lead us in this one?
Good evening, council. So I'll be kind of starting out WRF. Obviously, we had talked, I think ad nauseum about this during our retreat, but I wanted to do a public update so we can kind of get public on board and kind of tell you our update because we did have a meeting with Ecology yesterday. That went really well. So I just want to kind of give an update. As you know, we applied for funding back in 2020. We received that funding. Council last year approved the authorization of that loan. Since then, we've been working with Ecology to submit our WRF plans. We had a meeting with Ecology yesterday to kind of cement that. The hope is, and the plan is by June 30th, we will have funding in hand and a contract signed with Ecology that will allow us to go to bid for our WRF plant and WRF water reclamation facility. I know this, we've talked about this a lot. This is just kind of a general update so that the public and council know kind of where we're at. Our timeline has always been early spring. Now it's looking like maybe early summer it'll start because nothing ever works on time when you want it to, apparently. But it shouldn't put us back too much. A month or two delayed is fine. We're not a big issue with that. The only thing we are keeping our eye on is prices. As you know, if you work in any industry with consumer products, everything is going up. So we're just keeping an eye on making sure that our loan can handle the amount. So we'll have a new estimation of the quote for the loan for how much those new prices are because things are expensive now than they were 2 years ago when we first filed everything. But we've left a lot of room in there, a lot of contingency. So we don't think there will be much of a price increase at all, if at all. So council, just so you know, you'll be seeing that loan coming toward you. Public Service Committee will see it first once we get that loan agreement, and then council hopefully sometime in June. So any questions you guys have, just a general update for the public and everyone about what's going on. And I'll do one more sequence because I know it's gonna be important.
Councilmember Crossman, I think had it.
I just have a water question.
That's what I was gonna link it.
Information question. Now, in regards to that facility, Cochran Park, I know the water is reclaimed water. It's supposed to smell like agro from time to time.
So there should be some smells. They shouldn't smell like raw sewage ever. There will be some because there's vapors laden in it that'll smell a little stronger than normal, and you have plants growing in there and dying. And we had to fish out a couple of fish recently that were dead and plugged in a couple spots. So as you know, the big pond was seeded with fish. Gosh, how many years ago was that? In early 2000s, there was someone seeded with fish, which was a great thing because now we had a great fishing spot. But now as we cleaned the front pond out, there's a lot of fish getting stuck in filters and dying. And so you might be smelling us cleaning out some of the fish that are in there. And the new pond will not have fish in it because they're not good for filters.
Aaron was sitting there waiting and we saw a fish jump, but
Yeah.
the waterfall smelled a little bit like tagbo.
Okay. Yeah, it might be a little strong. I'll check that everything is.
Boys, don't put your hands in that water.
Yeah, it is reclaimed water, and as you see, there's signs up saying don't swim in it, don't jump in it. It is safe, and maybe some smell to it time and time, but don't drink it, don't jump in it, don't swim in it. We encourage you not to do those things. So
Phrase tag
there
road.
are signs up.
Tag road, never heard tag road.
It's
It's Tacoma's biosolids. If you want to plant some plants, you show some tagro.
it grows everything. So reclaimed water does the same. So linking kind of not that, but the the WRF question, why is the WRF important? I'll just go through that really quick. I know council, we talked about it, but with water rights coming online, the next big hindrance to that water rights will be our sewer treatment, how much water we can treat, how much wastewater we can treat. So upgrading our plant is something we need to do ahead of time before it's something we have to do because we have to work. So we're just getting ahead of the, being proactive instead of reactive about the water sewer plant or water reclamation facility.
And I just want to confirm, you've stated it before, there should be no additional cost anytime soon to the sewer portion of the water bills due to the fact that we've been able to get the grants, the loans, as well as come in under budget for a lot of the stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And just to reiterate on that, former council administration, a big part of it was not to raise the sewer bills. We wanted to figure out a way to do that. And council, finance director, everyone put in a lot of work to get those numbers crunched. And it was just a huge team effort figuring out how to do that and get those numbers, doing the rate studies so we wouldn't have to raise rates, because that's always been our goal, right? We want to have competitive rates, and we are at a spot where we do, which is great.
Any other questions? All right, before we move on to the next item B, I forgot to ask if council would allow an executive session towards the end at the end of this. After council initiatives to evaluate the qualifications of an applicant for public employment, which would be our police chief. So I just wanted to go over my selection, and this was the proper route rather than discuss the qualifications elsewhere. So council's okay with that at the end. Cool.
I can announce Councilmember Blair has joined us on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We'll be moving on to updates to the 2021 Unified Development Code, item B. And is London or is
It'll be
this?
both. So I'll start out. First, so we have fee schedule and development updates. So I'm going to just talk about the fee schedule really quick because it relates kind of what I just talked about, and then I'll pass it off to London to go from there. So the fee schedule, Public Services Committee is aware of this. We've started looking at some of the fees that we have in our system that may be antiquated, not lined up. There may be other things wrong with them, or we're not capturing some of the work that people are doing, and we're giving out free work for, in some instances. So we just want council to know that we are looking at our fee structure. Some of the fees that we're looking at are like re-inspect fees, because we don't charge. If someone fails an inspection, we go out and, someone's setting a step tank and they fail, we come back again for free. And if they fail again, we come back again for free. And if they fail again, we come back again for free. And we'll keep coming out until they pass that tank, which could be 6-7 times. And our guys are spending 1-3 hours on site, and they're literally doing it for free because they only paid for that initial inspection. So stuff like that where we need to recapture fees. But also, when London and I were looking through this, we did find some stuff where fees could be lowered. And London will talk briefly about one of the fees that we haven't found out. But so it's not just raising fees, it's just balancing fees out so they're equal and we're uniform with cities around us, and we are capturing actual work versus other things happening. So I'll let London take over with the fee and then move on to the development projects.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, great to be with you today. So yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about the one fee that we are proposing to lower in our fee schedule, and then we'll move into the development code package. So currently our home occupation fee is set at $125 based on other cities that we've looked at, both in Washington and out of Washington. This seems a little bit high for our home occupation fee. And so staff is considering some different target numbers that we could lower that to. The one that we're looking at right now is $50, so that would reduce it by over half. We feel like this is a little bit more reasonable to account for staff time processing home occupation requests, but also to not overburden small businesses, especially as we know that costs are rising, as Cody mentioned, and we want to be part of maybe movement to lower costs where we can for home businesses or small businesses or whatever. So so just wanted to let you know about that. That's something that we're looking at that will be.
Any question?
What is a home occupation fee?
Sure. So whenever, well, first, Counselor, let me ask another question. Are you familiar with what a home occupation is?
Are you talking about a final permit?
No, so yeah, let's
explain so everyone knows we're on the same page.
Definitely. So a home occupation is basically when somebody say just a resident in a home wants to do a business that's based out of their home. So we have a few just minor regulations associated with that, like you can't have a ton of parking on the street to bother your neighbors and things like that, basically small things like that. So right now, processing those home occupation applications, we charge $125 for that. So a home occupation permit is just the application essentially. And we as staff approve that application. So that's basically how to define.
Is that a home business license? Is that what it is?
So business licenses and home occupations are actually different. So business licenses are just licensing through the city to actually operate your business, whether it's a home business or a small business, or Walmart comes in or something like that. A home occupation license is just reviewing the code to make sure that it complies with the planning regulations that we have for home occupations. So it's a little bit different there.
So if you have a business in your home, you need two separate things to do that.
Correct. Yep, so we're proposing to, because we don't want to be a burden on home businesses, we're proposing to lower that fee from 125 to 50. As we've reviewed it, we feel like that number is just too high for the amount of time, because it usually takes us 15 to 20 minutes to review these. So $125 is just a little bit too high. So any other questions about that before I move on? Everyone's going twice. Okay, perfect. Well, let's jump into the development code amendments then. Okay, so our first one is just for changes of use. So similar to the home occupation permit fee, then we are proposing to remove the requirement for ministerial site plan review of changes of use. So what does that mean? So right now, anytime any kind of business, say there's like a State Farm insurance agency and they leave a building and a dance studio wants to come into that space. Because it's a change of use, then we process an application for that, just so we know what's happening there. But right now, we also require a site plan with fully engineered plans. Even just for that small thing, even if they're not changing anything as far as the exterior, no parking changes, no renovations to the exterior of the building, we still require that site plan. This is a holdover from before current staff, and as current staff has been reviewing it, then we felt like this is just another unjust thing to put on businesses that want to operate in the city. We're proposing to remove that requirement. Exceptions would be made for any change of use that requires exterior renovations or parking upgrades, just so that we can make sure that there's enough parking for whatever new use they're trying to do. Planning Commission suggested that we add, whenever staff feels it's necessary to have a ministerial site plan review, then we would have the ability to do that. But those are pretty rare exceptions. 90%, 95% of changes of use, staff doesn't need to review that other than just to see the change of use application, process that and say you're good to go. So any questions about that before we move on? Councilor Hess.
Say change to the exterior renovation. When let's say it goes from a steakhouse to Mexican restaurant, and what they're changing on the outside is like really small, there's decorative stuff. Is that included with that, or are we talking about changes of extending the building or adding more exterior buildings to them?
Yeah, we're talking about substantial building additions. So if somebody's putting new signs up, that would just be a sign permit, or just tiny modifications to the exterior. But if they're proposing to add another 1,000 square feet onto the building or something like that, we would need to see a site plan in that case, just to make sure that it complies with our code. So any other questions on that before we move on?
Councilmember Roy has her hand up.
Okay, Councilmember Roy, please.
Hi there. Will there be a set determination of what is a tiny change versus what is a big change? Or is it left up to our discretion or the builder's discretion?
Councillor Roy, that's a good question, and we could certainly set an upper limit on that. Just saying that any exterior changes that don't total more than 25 square feet or something like that, or signs or something like that that don't affect the building other than the actual sign square footage. We could certainly put some clarification in there just so that it's not left up to the discretion of the planners.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Perfect. We'll definitely brainstorm that, and then when we bring this to you for approval, then we'll be happy to present that as part of this, as part of the final. Any other questions on that? Perfect. All right, next, staff is proposing some changes to how we treat townhomes in the R4 zone, which is our low density residential. So the R4 zone currently allows townhomes to comprise no more than 50% of the development. So 50% has to be townhomes or single family attached. We've got a nice photo here to show you exactly what we're talking about with that. And then 50% of townhome developments have to be single family detached homes. So we're not talking about duplexes with this. So that's just when you've got two housing units that are attached to each other. We're talking about multiple units connected to each other, more than two. So 3, 4, 8, 12, things like that. Staff is proposing to remove this provision from the code for a couple of reasons. We're looking for more flexible housing construction within the R4 zone. We've heard from a few developers that this would be helpful to give them more flexibility to build some single family attached. So not apartments or anything like that, but single family homes that just happen to share a wall, basically. So that staff feels that not only is it beneficial to work with our developers on this, but it also gives variety to neighborhoods and increases choice for residents and developers. Too often I think we see just kind of like cookie cutter subdivisions and things like that, and we're looking to mix things up a little bit, or to give the option to mix things up if people want to do that. We also have some comprehensive plan obligations that are met through this amendment. I'm specifically thinking of a phrase in our development code, or our comprehensive plan, which says we will abide by smart growth principles. So some of those smart growth principles, as planners understand them, are just to provide denser housing where it's appropriate, and also to try to create more variety within neighborhoods, so it's not just kind of single family houses all around. Any questions on this, please, Councillor Smith?
So just to make sure we remove it, it could be 100%. I mean, that's
Correct.
okay.
Yeah. But something else that's important to remember, in the R4 zone, then you can only have 4 units per acre. So if there's a 3-acre development, then maybe somebody wants to have like 12 townhomes and then a park behind that, or something like that. So this isn't a means of cramming a ton more density into developments than would otherwise be there. It's just a way to increase flexibility, essentially, for our developers who are so important in helping to build our community.
And but when you say 4 units per acre, is a unit just one, or is it a group of 4?
One, so we consider a unit to be like a dwelling unit. So a unit that one family would be in.
Okay.
So when we say 4 units per acre, we're talking about 4 family dwellings per.
Okay.
Councillor Kaminsky, please.
We don't have any restrictions for someone that wanted to condominiumize townhouses.
Not in our development code, no.
So they could be done.
That could be done. Any other questions? Councillor Blair, is that a raised hand? Seen a raised hand, but that may have been a holdover from a previous one.
Go with Councilmember Hess.
Okay, Councilmember Hess, please.
This is just for the R4, not for any of the other ones, because the other ones already have that in.
They already allow 100% townhome developments. Those would just be at a higher density because of R6 and R12 following higher density. Any other questions on this? Okay, I will move on. And I'm happy if you think of other questions. during the presentation. I can answer those at the end if we go back to answer some questions. Our next proposal, staff's next proposal is to change the essential public facilities use from the special use category to the permitted use category. So what do we mean when we say essential public facilities? So that's an actual defined use category in our code. And it basically is just talking about city facilities or other public utilities. So right now they're classified as special uses. Well, what is a special use? A special use is any use that has to be approved by the hearing examiner and have a public hearing where people can come and comment on that. So what staff is proposing to do is to remove the requirement for hearing examiner review and a public hearing through the special use process. And the reason that we're proposing this is, for instance, our Southeast Reservoir project is being held up right now by the requirement for special use review. Not held up in the sense that there's anything wrong with it, but just held up in the sense that it has to go through this process. So I understand when I say remove public hearing, that might be a little bit scary, but we have two ways to make sure that we're accountable as far as where facilities like this get located. Number one, staff is still reviewing public facilities for compliance with the development code. So just making sure that, we're not going to have a building that's inappropriate in an area of the city that shouldn't have it. And also the city council still retains authority to reject city projects that they deem inappropriate. So even if it's not being directly reviewed by the hearing examiner, if staff are coming to the city council and asking for funds for a certain building in a certain location of the city, then city council still has the authority to say, no, if we're going to devote funds to this, it needs to be in a different place, or it needs to look different, or something like that. So city council still has oversight, and in those city council meetings, the public would also have the opportunity to speak out on that during the public comment portion. And another, I forgot to add this into my presentation, but the city still sends out notices of application, even on city buildings. And the public has the ability to comment on that as well to provide public feedback. So really what we're trying to do is just remove some of the more onerous requirements for city facility review, while still making sure that there's sufficient oversight to make sure that nothing bad happens, that people aren't getting, a gigantic power plant into the middle of their neighborhood or something like that. Any questions on that?
We have one question online from Councilmember Blair.
Blair Storm. Can we unmute him? Councilmember Blair, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Yeah, you're a little choppy.
Is that yeah? I'm gonna like 5 minutes. My question when I get.
Type it in the chat.
All right, we can't, we'll wait for you to get here. Not really wait for you, but we'll continue and we'll see you when you get here. All right? All right, Councilor Kaminsky.
If there was a project we wanted a hearing examiner to look at, we could still do it backwards, right?
The city council could still hold a public hearing on it, absolutely.
So maybe you should explain to the public exactly what the role of the hearing examiner is, so they know if that's an important.
Sure. And
Just briefly.
Councilor Hess, do you have anything to add before I go into that?
Yes, so it was kind of the same line, because I remember this discussion during the public service meeting. The hearing examiner, if I recall correctly, when our public essential items went through, the question was, you're following all the code? And everything was like, yes, because it was coming from staff itself. And so it had already gone through everything. And so we were actually paying an hour for a 5-minute, yes, everything's clear. And so, and if I remember correct, I'd asked that when we rewrite this, that we make sure that we clarify in writing that the community members still have an opportunity to speak during city council meetings as if it was a public hearing before the hearing commissioner.
Right. So I'll address the adding a pronouncement into the code thing in just a moment. But to your request, Councilor Kaminsky, about clarifying what the hearing examiner actually is. So the hearing examiner is a lawyer, land use lawyer who is retained by the city to make decisions on planning issues that we bring. So for instance, our code requires us to bring things like preliminary subdivisions, which is like kind of the meat of the subdivision review process. Those are reviewed by the hearing examiner, or things like special uses, uses that we think might potentially be good in an area, but also need extra review to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen if we put that review in there, or that use in there, excuse me. So the hearing examiner review is generally for things that we consider potentially could be controversial, or that there's a high likelihood that members of the public will want to speak out on. And there's a possibility that some members of the public might want to speak out on some city projects. But staff feels like we've built in enough safeguards, especially considering that the city council can hold a public hearing, they can call a public hearing about whatever they want in order to get public input on this. And so to your point, Councilor Hess, about adding in some language into the code saying that this is how the public can still speak out on something. The development code is generally not something for policy pronouncements. The development code is intended to be the law. So if we start inserting things that aren't technically legal, then one, it clutters up the code, and two, it's not something that's enforceable. And so it's something that just has no meaning in the code, essentially. So if you're concerned about whether the public is going to have the chance to speak out on something or not, excuse me, then maybe we just keep it as is, so that we give as many chances as possible for the public to speak out. Staff doesn't have an issue with that. We're just trying to make sure that we serve the public most effectively by getting the projects that they need out to them ASAP. So we're happy to do whatever council would like us to do on that, whether to bring it forward or to keep this amendment back or whatever. It's up to council. So any other questions on this? Councilor Richardson.
It's not on this one, but it's on the previous of the home occupation fee. Blair had texted me, I wasn't paying attention because I put my phone in my pocket. Is it okay to go back there, or do you want to wait till?
Absolutely.
Okay, give me a second, let me channel my Blair. All right, so Blair was,
Lean over more.
so from my understanding, this home occupation fee, what's the purpose of it? Why 50? Why can't we just eliminate it completely?
Right. Maybe that was an excellent impression. Got me in the spirit there. So I think, councilors, it's just intended to cover staff time, essentially. That this is generally something that cities do when staff are spending money on, or rather time on something, then it's a way to recoup that. It's not intended to, the planning department certainly is not an enterprise fund or anything like that, to become financially self-sufficient or anything like that, but it's just solely intended to cover our time. So we feel like $50 is more appropriate for the amount of time that we spend on it instead of 125. Councilor.
Oh, same lines. How many of these have you collected or averaged, do you know, in a year, if any?
Yeah, so we probably do 2 or 3 a week. And so this is something that we collect a lot of. This isn't like, once or twice a year thing. Yelm is an industrious city, and we're really proud of our citizens who really work hard to try to have their home businesses and to make a life for themselves. But it does involve some staff time to review those proposals and make sure that they're not going to have like tons of traffic coming into their neighborhood as a result of it, that they're going to be complying with all county health regulations and things like that. So that's just where the fee is coming from. So Councillor Kaminsky.
And remind everybody, please, how much the hearing examiner costs.
Hearing examiner is $225 an hour. So whenever,
Complicated project, it's gonna be-
usually that's a pass-through fee that we pass through to the developer and that they pay for if their project is being reviewed by the hearing examiner. But with city projects, then that has to come from planning funds. So it's something that we would like to avoid if we can.
Here's James, he's going. Coming in this way.
What was that cost again?
Yeah, $225 an hour.
As long as we could pull it out if we needed to, and that it's flexible both ways. I think that's-
Certainly, that's something that we can do, but staff would rather not be in a position of essentially having to double dip to. pay for our-
So you want it one way or the other.
With that, remember that we make sure that we really get it out to the public that this is your one opportunity to come to the city council meeting and speak up about it. So we need to make sure that somewhere with our communications director. or
Which they
someone-
would with the public hearing anyway, right? The hearing examiner, would go the same way.
Essentially, it's basically, do we want to pay for the public hearing? So,
I'd lean a little bit more.
All right. So on those two things, home occupation permit. Is it pretty fair to say the vast majority of them are gonna be people that are doing like MLM type businesses, Sensi, that kind of stuff?
not necessarily. So we have a lot of people actually who do want to do like growing operations, not marijuana growing operations, but just like home hydroponics, things like that. And people who want to do like kind of a mini little restaurant, like sell food out of their home, not just grow it, but sell it out of their home. We get independent contractors who are, they're based in Yelm, but they're going around to places within Yelm, things like that to offer services. So it's a wide variety. We do have some of those MLM home office type businesses. We are, so that this won't be this month, but with our next round of updates that we'll bring to you probably sometime in August, then we are proposing that if you just receive mail at your home as part of your home business, and that's the only thing that you do there, you don't have any kind of operations there, all you do is receive mail, then we're proposing to no longer have that be a home occupation. But we do need to insert that into our code just so that we can make that distinction. So we are thinking about that. We want to pull back a little bit on the regulation and just really focus on the people who will be having clients come to their home or having some kind of major business operation in their home that's more than just getting mail.
Because I spoke with 2 or 3 different people, including the old city administrator, a couple of the old council members regarding this home occupation permit a couple of years ago. And that's what the whole point of it was, for the businesses that are having people come and go.
Sure.
If it's somewhere that you don't have customers coming and going, then it really doesn't make sense to it to be required at all. The only one it makes any sense for is if there's any sort of additional traffic into the neighborhood that otherwise wouldn't have been there, not including UPS deliveries. That was when I texted him, like, if some lady wants to start making dream catchers and selling them online and all she's doing is shipping them out, there is no value in charging her even the $50. It doesn't do anything. As far as the staff time, I remember when I did mine, it was literally 5 minutes. So any excuse of that it costs $50 in staff time for these permits is, sorry, it doesn't fly.
Any amount that you think would be appropriate?
For what just brought up about like eliminating it for those certain businesses,
You can eliminate it completely.
I think it should be there for a business where you're having people coming and going. And because you're just trying to cross T's, dot I's, make sure everything's copacetic. That's all fine and dandy. What I mean is like what you're talking about. If you're not having clients coming and going and literally it's just mail going in and out of your home for your business, then no, there shouldn't be a permit at all for it. So I'm glad that you brought that up already and looking at getting rid of that.
No, we're thinking about that. So we'll, when we bring it back in August, then we will just kind of maybe delineate a little bit more clearly which categories of home business that we are wanting to charge the fee for. But yeah, we are thinking about those things, Councilmember Blair.
As far as the ones where there's like that additional traffic to the neighborhood, all that, I understand. Those ones actually do take more time because you're digging into what it is they're gonna be doing. And maybe there is an hour or two of staff time to figure that out. I understand that. The other one I wanted to touch in on before we moved on, regarding the special use permit. Was the only reason for getting rid of it because the city had to deal with it? Because
So
if I recall, there was a certain church years ago that was doing a food bank and stuff, and they got held for it and dealt with a lot of BS with the city for it. So I'm just trying to clarify, are we doing this to benefit people or are we just doing it because the city's having to deal with it?
So it was inspired by the Southeast Reservoir project that we're trying to do right now. As far as the
That was long before me and your time here.
yeah. So I can't speak to how it's handled by my predecessor, but we can, certainly look at what we consider to be an essential public facility. I think because churches are private entities, then I don't think that this would apply to them. But we can, I think churches are permitted uses and so we shouldn't have that layer of bureaucracy for churches right now. This is mainly just to try to help city projects move forward faster so that people can get the amenities we're trying to get to them sooner. But again, it's up to the council whether they think that that's a wise move or not. We are proposing this as an option, and council can take it or maybe say that's not such a good idea.
So privately, anything would still have to go through a special use permit process.
So special uses are, so not every use that happens in the city is a special use. Most of them are permitted uses. So things like churches or office buildings or things like that. We just, and perhaps in a couple weeks, I can come with a larger presentation on what a special use is and what we consider special uses in the city. But I will tell you that most cities that we've looked at as staff have public facilities as permitted uses. They're not considered to be special or conditional uses that need extra review. So it's fine if Yelm wants to keep them as special uses, but that is what we found as we've done other research. And that other cities generally consider these to be permitted, and they don't go to any kind of public hearing other than what the city council might.
I would just, like, as far as where I'm at with that is, if we're gonna get rid of it, then whatever would be the equal on the private side, those permits need to go away as well. Otherwise, then the city needs to go the same route that anyone else has to.
Any other comments?
How many cities, is it more common to not have a hearing examiner or more common to have one in cities of our size?
So a lot of cities will do it differently. So some cities, the planning commission will review special uses or conditional uses, as they're called in many cities. Yelm doesn't do that. Typically, either the planning commission will, or there will be a hearing examiner, or there will be just a board of adjustment that will review. It's like a planning commission, but specifically for things like variances and special conditional uses. So it varies. All three approaches are pretty common. But what isn't common is to have city projects have to go through a special use.
Lynn, how many more slides do you have in yours?
I have two more.
Any other questions on this before we move on?
I was kind of all in favor of removing red tape. Get rid of bureaucracy.
All right, let's move on. Next slide.
Right, accessory use regulations. Staff is proposing to clarify and add a number of regulations relating to accessory use structures. So one of these already exists in like 10 different sections of the code, and we're just proposing to put it into one. And then 2 of them would be new. So number 1 is a new regulation that would prevent new construction from being located on 2 different lots at the same time. So one of the reasons why that's an issue is the county doesn't allow it. So if somebody subdivides and then tries to build on 2 different lots, then it's illegal according to the county. So we just want to prevent people from getting into hot water with that. And it makes it a little bit harder for us as staff to review it.
Sorry, we're mumbling a bit. What, can you say that again? If you have 2 lots, you can't build new construction?
So we are proposing that if you have multiple lots, then you wouldn't be able to build on a new structure onto multiple lots. This is already how we treat it. This is already how we.
Clarify. So I own 2 pieces of property. This is saying I can't build a house that's half on each one.
Correct.
I'm not cool with
Half
that.
on each one. It wasn't clear, sorry.
To do.
To build a house, what would you have to do a boundary line? Yeah, that's what,
Yeah.
just clarify that, because that's
Or
what. I
turn
get
into
confused
one
about.
lot, right?
So yeah, you.
Or I'm sorry, I totally missed it.
Sure.
You already said it's a county regulation already.
It is a
Do that?
county issue. So if you are, for instance, if you have, your existing home and you try to, split it into 2 lots and split your house down the middle, then the council won't allow you to do that. Or excuse me, the county won't allow you to do that. So it tends to get a little bit hairy with ownership and legal descriptions and things like that when you have one structure that's divided onto 2 properties. And so we're just proposing to codify what we already do.
It's called a double lot. Finish, please.
Yeah, we're proposing to regulate that so that that's not allowed. And then the second one, so this is an existing regulation that's already on the books. So accessory buildings have to comply with all building setbacks except in certain situations. So we're just proposing to, that's in like 10 different sections of the code, and we're proposing just to put it into our 1 accessory use regulations ordinance, so that we don't have kind of extra clutter in the code. And then the 3rd one is just saying, proposing that any new building additions must match the primary structure. So, say you've got a big commercial building that's in kind of a modern style, and then you want to put a Victorian looking wing on it, then we're proposing to disallow that.
I would start off that last one. I don't know how everyone else feels. I think that should be wiped out. That's some HOA type stuff. Has nothing to do with safety, security, or anything that we as the city government should be worried about. That's some HOA stuff that isn't our business.
Well, then is there a reason that planners like that?
Yeah, so generally, and we do have some design standards on the books right now, just for larger buildings that are 100 feet or wider or longer. So planners generally like proposing those, and a lot of cities like those, a lot of city governments like those, just because it helps with beautification, helps to create more of a uniform. And it's not saying that 2 buildings next to each other couldn't be in different styles. It's just saying that if you have one building and it looks one way, and then you add another wing onto it that looks another way, then I think for most people that would look a little bit cluttered and not very good looking. So again, that is a value judgment. If the council feels differently, then certainly we can not bring this to your vote. But
Is this something council wants to see off of this or looked at again?
I would strike it.
Yeah, I would too.
I'm not a fan of it.
I don't, it's not our business what they want their building.
Councilor Hess, did you have something to say on this one?
Yeah, I think it's kind of important. It is something that we should consider. You're right, we don't want to necessarily state and tell them, but at the same time, I understand what, you know, the example she gave. What if you have something with that is a, you know, let's take building right here, 3-story building, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's kind of plain, it's nice and straight, and, you know, has a particular look. Then all of a sudden, they add to that building. It's actually attached, it's right there, and they all of a sudden decide to do, as she put it, a Victorian look. It's not gonna, it doesn't look right. It doesn't flow right. It makes it so that then identity for the city and a variety of other things, it starts looking mismatched. And, you know, it doesn't help with the identity of the city or anything else like that. I don't see, I mean, I think it's reasonable. It's reasonable to ask that it matches the style. Or could this also be that it's originally a wooden structure and now we're putting a full-blown concrete right next to it? They share this.
Yeah.
Or it's, you know, that also falls into that. It may not be necessarily style, it's also materials. So that's also important. We want to make sure the materials are the same so it flows and kind of works there when you're doing that.
Councilmember Crossman.
I'd say we're too far gone on that. Take these 2 blocks of downtown, for instance. There's mismatches you can get. And I'm like, we're too far past establishing this as buildings have to be all uniform looking. So I'm in fan of, if somebody thinks it looks good, it's in, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so if they want their business to look like that, it will affect their business the way they do. So we let them go with it.
Councilmember Kaminsky and Blair.
It would still have to be approved, right? So you have a safeguard there, but it might be architecturally pleasing in the way it's done. You never know.
It might be, yeah, exactly.
Councilmember Blair, do you have some?
I 100% understand the reasoning why and why people would want something, a regulation like that there. It's just that it comes down to more of just a fundamental thing. That's not a job.
We'll look at this some more before we bring it to council. We'll rework it. Anything else before we move on?
I just wanted to make sure that I understood. The first one, 1A, is preventing, what that one was is basically taking and building something that's on 2 separate lots so that in case, and it's because the county doesn't allow it, and also it's because of the fact that if somebody else says, well, I'm going to sell lot A, but not lot B, now you have a building that's sitting there and has to be completely wiped out.
Right, yeah, it's more for,
Lot description and it's a legal thing in reference to that.
Councilmember Blair?
In a situation like that, is there the opportunity for someone to join 2 parcels into one?
there is,
I
yes.
don't know. So
You can do a boundary line adjustment, a lot combination to take care of that. So let me be clear, this is, we do have a couple lots existing like that in the city. This would not force them to like demolish their building or to combine. We would consider that to be like a legal non-conforming structure. And this would just be for new construction.
So, so county code supersedes city, even though city's kind of separate from county building.
It's
Is
not.
that how it is, or we just we want to line up with county?
Yeah, it's not so much that county code supersedes us, it's more, if we take a plat map, for instance, to be recorded with the county, if they see a structure with that straddles multiple lots, they won't record that plat. And that's more what we're thinking about here. Because we do have to record plats with the county. That's not something that the city independently has the authority to do. So that was the scenario that we're envisioning with this. And again, if council feels like it's not a scenario that we'll run into or that we need to worry about, then you know, we're certainly happy to not bring it forward for a vote.
Anything else?
All right, just one more. Let's talk about ordinance 399. So this was a city council ordinance from 1991, so over 30 years ago, blast from the past. And this ordinance standardizes annexation processes for the city. Well, you're going to be hearing the word annexation a lot over the next few months with hopefully water rights coming in soon. And so staff is proposing to add the text of ordinance 399 to the municipal code as chapter 266030, submittal review and approval. And so this ordinance currently is referenced in our annexation code, but it's not actually part of the code. Staff has some concerns about this, that we are essentially bringing people into the city with annexations through a process that actually isn't codified. So we are thinking that it would be best to actually codify this. Ordinance 414, which was passed by the city council soon after, and which also deals with annexations, actually forms the basis of our current chapter 2.66. It's just missing half, which is ordinance 399. There's precedent for adding city council ordinance text to the official municipal code. I'll also mention that ordinance 399 was almost lost, actually. And it took Marion, one of my planners, a lot of time and effort to dig through all of our old records to find the copy that actually was extant. So staff feels like now's the time to add ordinance 399 to the development code as part of chapter 2.66. Any questions about this?
I just want to make sure I understood it correctly. Ordinance 414 is codified. Ordinance 399 is the other half of 414 that once added to ordinance 414 as chapter 2.66. It will codify a full annexation process that city council back in 1991 had proposed.
Correct. It's probably most accurate to think of them as companion pieces. One of them deals with essentially the city and staff review process for how we bring this in. And 414 deals more with kind of what happens after and how we interact with the county and things like that. So staff thinks that it would be good to add that in. Any other questions?
Thank you, London.
Okay, yeah, that is everything. So that's the end of the formal presentation, but also just want to mention that we're working on a few other things that we'll bring for the August study session. I know there's been a lot of questions about chain link fences. When are we bringing that back and things like that? So we're looking at a couple different options right now. We need to talk to Planning Commission to see what their thoughts are. And try to come up with something, maybe a compromise between those who do want them in the city, those who don't, those who want them, but only in certain places. We're trying to find a good balance right now on that. So that's one thing that we're working on. We're also looking at adding in RV camping and parking into our open space zone. We're receiving some interest from people who would like to bring that use into the city. And so it's currently not allowed in our open space zone, and somebody wants to do that use in one of our open space zone areas. So we are taking a look at that, and we'll bring that to you in August. What was our other height? The height limit. We're having some questions about whether it would be appropriate to raise the height limit for the city for buildings in the CBD zone and our commercial zones. So we're not looking at this for residential zones. Those height limits would stay at their current levels. But currently the limit is 35 feet in our commercial and CBD zones. And we're taking a look at what would be an appropriate height potentially to raise that to. If somebody wanted to say construct a 3-story building or a 4-story building in one of those zones.
How tall is the water tower? How tall is the water tower?
Guessing 122 feet.
I'm sure that's not a guess. Just give me something to compare to.
Absolutely. Any questions about that? Just wanted to kind of give you a heads up about things that we're looking at that we'll bring to you in August. So we're looking at probably four amendments that will get reviewed by Planning Commission in July. And then our Public Services Committee will take a look at them in late July, and then they would come to the August study session. Any last questions?
Thank you, London.
Okay.
All righty. So we covered A, B, and C, correct, Cody? Did you want to add any of those?
No, I know, I saw when the RV was mentioned, somebody like, RV camping, this would be like an actual RV camping site that would come in and build an RV camping site, not like RVs parked on,
Inside road.
yeah, on Lily Road or something like that. It would be our RV camping grounds for people to come and snowbird, stuff like that.
Like 1,000 trails type of thing.
I don't know what 1,000 Trails is.
KOA.
Like,
KOA.
These are just.
Like the Moose Lodge, kind of,
It'll be 3 or 4 members, so they park a
Thank you.
RV.
Definitely not like the Moose Lodge.
but not, so they would be like temporary parking for.
Actual campsites.
Yes, the idea would be, people coming in for like, hey, I'm a grandparent, I live in Arizona, I'm coming in to visit my grandchildren, I have an RV, I have a campground I can park in for 3-4 months, and then I'm on my way.
You know the general area that we're talking about?
I know the exact area you're talking about. I don't know, because the owner they're talking about it, I don't want to give any anyway, but it's a really good area, and if it goes through, there'll be other things that'll benefit the city as well in that area. It matches with the other things around it.
and so they would pay to park there.
Yeah, they would pay this person, not us.
No, I understand
Yeah,
that.
they would pay to park there and rent the space for X amount of days, and there'd be a time limit too, so there wouldn't be people parked there, and I know there's other RV rules, like they have to be 10 years or newer, there's other rules they have in RV things, I don't know in RV unfortunately.
Basically allowing a commercial business to occur situation.
Like a campground to open up, we don't have the ability to do that yet, so it's London's idea to, let's get that in the code, and so we can allow people to do it, I think it'd be great. Huh?
In the city limits.
It would be in the city limits. It's at that point. Carry on.
Alrighty, moving on. Yelm Community Beautification Grant Program presentation. Something the council's requested. We have a solution. We've discussed this multiple times. Chief, would you talk about the program? How
Love to.
implement it?
Thank you for sending it out. Or thank you for sending it out, Kathy, because it was, yeah,
Kathy's idea.
thank you. That was good.
Get credit for it.
Whatever.
So, yeah, this is to kind of continue what we talked about at the retreat. We had a good discussion on what it might be. I wanted to, and we didn't, I don't think had enough time at the retreat to really go through kind of the proposed language and what it would include. So we wanted to send that out to give everybody time to look at it, give your opinion on it. We updated a few items in there to be more accurate, where if we were actually to go live with this, some of the dates, deadlines were adjusted to actual dates that we would use for the application process. What we have talked about internally with the finance department is kind of an amount we could come up with for this year, for 2022. We targeted $25,000 out of the municipal building fund. The idea we'd go up to 5,000 per application, up to. We don't have to. If we had multiple applications, we could reduce our contribution and fund more. And we also talked about what an internal committee might look like that would review the initial applications, and then those would come to council for approval before any money was awarded. So that would consist of a couple staff members to include one of our building officials that could make sure that the building codes or whatever wanted to be done was being done within code. Our finance director would volunteer to be on that committee as well, which I think is a good idea. We would ask a council member to serve on that committee as well for the initial review. And then the mayor expressed interest that he could be on it as well. So we wanted to come up with an odd number. So in case there's some applications that everybody doesn't agree on, we could have an odd number to hopefully bring something to council. So internally, that's what we kind of been talking about, what that might look like. I don't know if everyone's had time to read through this. This explains what the program is, kind of the application process. What are your thoughts? What would you like us to do moving forward on this? Or if you have other ideas, let me know.
I thought it was very well written. I thought everything was covered. I mean,
We took it Well, we took it from another city that's
Yeah.
already has this program.
Yeah.
We didn't reinvent the wheel so much, so we adjusted it to us, customer us.
In reference to the committee that would look at it, could we also add for your odd number, somebody from the art commission? One of those members that they choose, whether it's their chairperson.
And so we did, that was brought up, I believe, did we talk about that this morning? Anyway, somehow that got brought up. The only concern is just that this was centered on more beautification in general, not necessarily art. And so we kind of wanted to make sure that it was somewhat,
The planning committee, somebody from the planning commission. In other words, somebody from the community member advisory boards would be really nice to have on there instead of just the city people themselves.
Just,
Go ahead.
I just, for some reason, have an issue with the HOA part. Because HOAs collect money for this very reason. So if you wanted to include residential, I'm thinking maybe in the old district of the city only, where there are no HOAs and where people have.
yeah, so the only thing I would say to that is that I think with the review process of the application and then council review to approve the applications, we would be able to weed out those particular organizations that should have the money in their HOA to make something happen. And so those questions would all have to be
What
answered.
if you had 3 applications from HOA communities? Then
We
you're
don't have
gonna
to fund
feel,
anything.
then you're gonna feel like you have to. So I would just leave it out altogether.
We don't have to fund it.
No.
At least it gives us the leeway to make that decision. But it's up to you, your guys'
And
plan.
the other thing that I don't quite understand, like I know this has already been done through Chamber of Commerce and everything, is you have a business owner that likely would fix their facade if they had the money. There's many, like, Remax is just doing a beautiful new fence and they've done extensive renovations. And then you've got a small business that has no money. So we're saying, we're gonna give you money as long as you pay for it first. But the chances are, if they don't have the money, they can't get a loan. They either don't have enough income or credit. And so how are they supposed to fund a project even for $5,000 without the money? And hopefully they're lucrative enough to do it, but what if they're not? And they need help? What are they supposed to do? That's my question.
This may seem heartless and mean, but if you're a business owner and you can't come up with $5,000 to do something on your frontage, you have much bigger problems than the front of your building. And with all, I mean, no disrespect to anyone, but that's not our problem.
All right, hold on, we have another hand up. Councilmember Roy?
Thank you. I just wanted to kind of reiterate what Holly said. I think this is a really well thought out program. It's really successful in the city that it's originated from me advocating for small businesses. I think that it will allow them to do things that they maybe wouldn't have been able to do in the past. And I do think that having the HOA ability, I think that's great. I think it'll help to propel those neighborhoods that might need a little bit of help. And when we're approving these, we can prioritize, this year we're going to prioritize small business. This year we're going to prioritize medium business. This year we're going to prioritize HOAs. Like, we can push through kind of, where our values and priorities lie, to make sure that we're focusing on making an impact in a larger scale.
But this beautification is about people. Okay, I was on a road trip. I drove through a million little cities. I have my impression right away which ones look good and which ones felt bad. So yes, James, maybe the little small business will go out of business because nobody goes there and he has no money. But why should we prioritize an HOA that has $25,000 in the bank because no one else applies and they get a new shrubbery in their thing? And the little guy that really needs help, where will he get the money up front? That's my question.
Let me just reiterate, this is a council decision. So at the end of the day, if council doesn't want to give to
But this is
HOA,
just
but at the
discussion,
end of the, yeah, this, no, yeah, this is for this, but I'm saying it. After this is, if this is approved by council and this is the process we use, at the end of the day, if the committee doesn't say that, that's fine. If it goes to the council, it's a council decision at that point. You can make that argument saying these guys have too much money or for whatever reason, they shouldn't get it. Just like any of the other organizations are listed on there. If one, you know, if Walmart Supply and said, hey, we need 5,000 to do that. Well, we might say, well, you guys have that money. We're gonna save it for a small business or somewhere else. So just because they apply for it doesn't mean there's multiple checks that you can, that council has to stop this.
Okay, but I'm just saying, other than veto somebody that needs a new frontage on the main drag of town. Answer my question, where do they get the money if they want to participate? If they don't have it.
They should have.
Kathy wants to answer for our city clerk here. Go ahead.
I'd just like to add one thing though, is the city can't just give them the money. They have to spend it legally. That would be an audit issue, it would be gifting of funds. So they have to do the work and submit the receipts. It has to be a reimbursement. That's not
That's a
something,
legal thing.
that's not something that we can just change. Yeah, we can't just gift them the money and hope they do the project. They have to do the project and spend it and submit receipts, and then we can reimburse it.
Yeah.
So.
One other item too, Jerry, I think that might help is that they don't have to ask for 5,000. I mean, if they want to just, you know, ask for $500 to paint the front of their business, they might come up with $500. And so it doesn't have to be a $5,000 ask. It can be of any amount. There are other, you know, if they can find other funding, you know, I mean, if they were to borrow it from somebody and say, I need $1,000 to do this, they're going to get it back. You know what I mean? As long as it meets the criteria, they will get all that money back.
Any other questions on this? Councilor Blair?
Just so, I know you probably just answered, but it could be something as simple as they want to put flower pots up for lights or do something that makes it look better.
Could be $500
It
deal.
doesn't need to be something that costs $5,000.
No.
Councilmember Hess.
Small.
In reference to this, what's the standard on what, if somebody, are we going to see, in other words, we're going to present the whole project, in other words, what color paint and everything else, or is it just the description is, I'm going to paint the front of my building?
I believe it should be in the.
It's very detailed. That's why I said I like
So we
it.
got there's pictures, there's
They have to-
a.
The council receive this?
Mine wouldn't
Yes.
download them. I couldn't
Couldn't
download.
download?
It wouldn't download.
No, it was very, I thought it was very.
Yeah, it does address that though in there.
It's into everything. They have to tell you everything that they're doing.
And if there's any other suggestions though that council does have on this, if they don't like something, that they see it tomorrow, they don't like it, please reach out to us and we'll address it. This is your decision to make.
I mean, like right now, the way it states is painting or facade material upgrades. When they present it, do they use the term, I'm going to be painting and upgrading the front? Or is it like?
More back in the application process. Yeah, there's more back, that's very descriptive.
Councilmember House, why don't you read it and then
No,
ask those particular questions.
That's can't.
Councilmember Crossman.
Two things. Number one, on that, you want to sell it, so you want to be descriptive as possible, so you get that approval. So you want to present as much info as possible, so you can get that. Two, when does it go live?
So the idea is that we would bring this back to a resolution by council at the end of this month. Would they get the approval to move forward with this? We would go live this year. So the idea is that would be advertised through June. And then we would take applications through, I think July 7th was the date we'd come up with. We would come back, the committee would present to council in July the applications that they recommend. They would get notification of funding, and then they would have through, I believe, November 15th to complete their projects. Contact the committee, it says, I'm done, come and look at it. Somebody from the committee would check off that everything was done according to application. They would, then we would come back to council, and those funds would be released in December for that business. So it's a very compact timeline.
One time a year.
Yeah, the idea is we do it one time a year. And the other thing I would just reiterate is we'll probably learn some things this year. If there's different things we need to do or tweak, we can easily come back next year and go through this. And maybe if we find that there's a tremendous interest, that maybe we want to change the funding amount, that's entirely up to you guys.
How would we let the businesses know?
We would use our new communications person to use
Contact them, maybe
every
direct.
avenue,
I don't know what directly, I mean, there's tons of business, but
every
there's,
avenue available to us to let people know that this is available.
Yeah, there- yeah.
I'll be applying in June.
Councilor Blair.
I know there was talk about, just because we're on the subject, there was talk about us like lighting the trees. Is there still movement on that?
Yeah, so that's our property, so that would be funded through our own budget process. Yep. Yeah,
That's still in like
yeah,
Still rolling. Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
planning stages, whatever.
It'll be done by the end of the month. No,
Only because I think,
Yeah, don't say that.
let me just tell you what Cody would say.
I don't have a problem with it, like, that's something we can do.
Yeah.
Look cool.
100%.
And it's not that expensive.
Yep.
There might be an opportunity to light them up the same color as the water tower. Maybe oversell it. Yeah.
Good news is you already approved.
The good thing is we are,
You approved it.
yeah, it's already done. No, we are working on that still. We'll give more updates when that gets closer.
How do you feel about this HOA thing? Because I think that's really, well,
I'll probably be a no on any HOA that applies for it.
So
I
I
mean,
probably
there's enough
will too,
safeguarding.
but aren't HOAs, some charge more, some charge less, sometimes you have small neighbor, I'm just saying.
no, everybody, I
I mean,
mean,
you're saying everybody has $25,000. I don't know.
yeah, they probably do.
They charge different amounts.
They
HOA.
charge
what I'm
anywhere
saying. That's what
from,
I'm trying
like,
to
the
get
lowest
at.
one in town is about $185 a year, and most of them are $250 to $300. And this money sits in their accounts and to be used for exactly things like this.
No,
Not necessarily. Some of those fundings are because they have, what's the proper term for the storm area that they have?
Right, that's
Next one.
maintenance.
They have that money there for, that they build up to do maintenance on that in case.
Right,
and all.
right, but
They also have, the money is used for protecting them on their insurance for common
right,
areas and they do those
that's
things.
true, but they
So-
still.
All right.
I think we have enough.
We're gonna have one last question on this, then we're gonna move on. If we do, I will, just before Councilmember Roy goes, if this is something that multiple council members have an issue with, and it kind of sounds like there is, we can do two options on this as well. We can tee it up with two, one with HOA, one without the HOA, with specific language. If it's legal, I think we'll have to chat with our attorney just to make sure we're not discriminating or anything like that. Just to make sure we're doing everything good. But if that's the case, so we can possibly bring two options that the council can deliberate and vote on.
Okay.
All right, Councilmember Roy, Blair, and then we're gonna move on. You good, Councilmember Roy? Councilmember Blair?
Quick question. Is there anything in here in the application where they're stating the financial need for it?
The only part about the financial need is there is a line where they can put some other funding options out there. So if people are donating to it, total project costs and then other financial.
If there's a way that perhaps we, and I don't know if this is something we would want, I'm just thinking, is there a way that basically showing why it is that you're gonna need financial help for the project? Then we can weed out, then it comes down to the decision on our end. So if Walmart applies and they show us, and they say, well, we have X amount in revenue a year, you don't need $5,000 to do that. If there's an HOA that comes in and they say, we have $100,000 a year in revenue, I'm like, okay, why do you need that? But if there's a smaller HOA and say that maybe they only make $5-6 grand a year, that's kind of tied up in these things, and they're saying this is why we need kind of some financial help, but we want to do this, make it look better, then we have that information to make a better decision.
So again, this is a pretty well-greased wheel for the city that is Enumclaw, correct? That we got it from Marysville that runs it. And so I don't necessarily think we need to do a bunch of little things to it.
No.
If that's they've had to have dealt with this too, their council as well.
I hadn't had a chance
We can-
to go through it yet, so that's why I was asking if there was that
Get funds.
financial aspect where they
Yeah,
showing what,
there's nothing in this that.
I don't know if that's even necessary. It's just an idea to.
We'll cook it a little bit more before we bring it to council and incorporate some of the ideas that council had in there. And then we'll bring it to you. So we'll get it the way you all want it.
So do we want HOA out or in?
Chief.
You leave it. You can leave it. Give us both ways.
In order to get, in order to meet the timeline that we've set for this, we need to bring it back for a resolution sooner than later. We're not gonna get it done this year.
Chief,
I don't want to exclude them.
Chief, we're good. We can talk more about this some other time, all right? All right, thank you,
Quick
Chief
vote.
Sansel.
We did a quick vote on it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to
leave.
know, guys.
We don't vote in this. We don't vote in
What
study
is
session.
it with no HOA where there's no money in a pot. I say leave out the HOA.
Leave it in.
What do you say, Brian?
It's our discretion, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna put up, you guys council, I'm gonna put it up with two options, all right? We'll be good to go with that point. You can deliberate at the actual city council meeting. It's just different options.
Nailed it.
All right. Thank you, Chief Sansel. Appreciate that. All righty, moving on. Mayor's report.
For me.
That's it for you right
We
now.
said we want to have more fun in these, right? Study sessions.
This is our informal discussion.
All right, let's go, you guys. Come on.
No.
There's no
We're gonna
gavel.
toss
Hey, you
that
don't get a
gavel.
gavel in this meeting.
Gavel is study session.
Oh, hey.
Where's our new venue anyway?
Oh, this was a study session.
All right, shall we just rabble for an hour or so, or shall we continue?
If we want to, yeah.
Councilmember Hess.
We asked about doing an executive session. When did you plan to do it? I thought
We're
we
gonna
got
do it right after council, right before the end of it, and then we can come back to adjourn. All right, we good?
You go for it. Give us your report.
All right, my report. My report is, we're talking about our June study session. We're gonna aim for June, for study session to implement the changes that council requested. Depending if we can get the camera and the recording stuff, we'll do it June 1st. We'll also, at that point, have, Councilmember Smith as the mayor pro tem.
I don't want to do it anymore after tonight. No, I'm kidding.
Your circuits to run at that point. No, we will move over to the public safety building though, as requested. We'll do the, it'll still be recorded. But it'll be in a more informal setting. It'll be a round setup. But yeah, so we're waiting to hear back on one of our vendors basically to see if we can use that system. If not, we'll be probably July at the latest. So shooting for June, likely July though, but you never know. Moving on though, we are also talking about, we have our new communications and recreation coordinator, a person's doing, she's actually running this meeting right now. She's doing great. And one of the ideas that she came up with is more events and more things like that. One particular one is a food truck idea that other cities already do. It's just like to have a day for food trucks out there, especially in the summer, right by, we're gonna be having this paved here. So as soon as that's paved and that'll first, a lot more parking spaces in that area. A lot of children use the splash pad, a lot of children use the park, a lot of adults use the park, but sometimes get hungry. So maybe if we do a day like a Friday or Saturday, where we have a time blocked out for just food trucks, just something that we're thinking about mulling around, wouldn't be that hard to implement.
What are you talking about, baby?
The parking lot at the Yelm City Park,
Oh, so we're gonna follow our own.
we are gonna pave, yeah. We've discussed that before, but yeah. That's also along with the grand opening of our fitness pad, and we're gonna be doing that, blah, blah, blah. Moving on, that was actually the biggest thing I wanted to chat about. Oh, LTAC meeting, excuse me. So we had an LTAC meeting today earlier. We have 4 out of the 5. We have multiple applicants. Gonna keep that open for another, 2 weeks or so? Make a choice at that time. We'll have a full committee. But we did decide we're gonna advertise starting tomorrow, and it'll be up for the month of May. At the end of the month, the 31st, the application period will close temporarily. We're gonna be doing it year round, but temporary as we make a selection. The committee will review it that first week. That's actually that Friday of June. And then council will receive the recommendation by the end of June. And we will be able to start awarding those other applications that come in. We've already had a couple that come in, other applications for LTAC funding. So we're rocking and rolling with that. Any questions
Can you
on?
make that any faster?
It's pretty quick.
In summertime, yeah, summer events.
Yeah, but it should be awarded, it should be ready to go for those, though, so.
Yeah.
It's reimbursement based anyway, so.
Yeah, right.
As long as organizations can plan for it, and we should get that improved, hopefully if council approves it by the end of June. All right, moving on to council member initiatives. Let's start with Councilmember Kaminsky.
No initiatives, but I wanted to ask everybody, did anybody go to that food sustainability thing in the community center? It was some farm people from the area putting out food sustainability for local, you know, food, in case of shortages or whatever, but nobody went. Okay, that was my only question.
All right, Councilmember Roy.
Thank you. No initiatives, but I did want to mention that it is Public Service Recognition Week. And I just wanted to say, you know, we're exceptionally lucky to have the staff that we have in City Hall that are, you know, working for the local government. So hats off to you. Thank you for everything that you do to make our role here so much easier.
Councilmember Roy. Councilmember Hess.
I have, with the Regional Housing Commission, got a retreat coming up that we're going to be talking about the two big issues, if everything goes right, homelessness as well as affordable housing. With the homelessness portion, I am starting to find out about resources that are here in Yelm itself, trying to find a way to organize them, get them, make sure that they are fully aware whenever the county's putting money out and asking for grant applications. So I'm going to be networking at that event to build up those resources, to try to get our churches and our community members that have their 501(c)s lists so that they are aware of what's happening.
Feel free to, that's great. Feel free to reach out to the homelessness task force, the committee members, as well as just the committee in general. They do all that stuff, and they would love that. Anything else?
And then also on the homelessness portion, just clarification or kind of a heads up. Olympia with, I wish I could remember which street it is. They're getting ready to start, I hate the term sweep, they're going to start cleaning up, moving people. They've reached out, they've done their task force things. So just be aware that that's about ready to start happening. And so we need to be aware that some of those individuals may come into South Thurston, and Yelm being a prominent element of that, we might see something like that happening. So just wanted to give a heads up with the public safety. I brought that up so we can be aware of it. And I'm going to be, again, networking to make sure that what resources are there, that we can make sure we have, that we're resource-wise.
Councilmember Smith.
No initiatives.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Crossman.
All right, I got three things. We'll go for quick to longest. Number one, Pretty City Day, May 21st. Remember, we got a couple people sign up for teams to go out, clean up the city. So hope you all get out there in town. Number two, I would like to discuss more the EIC concept. You know, I was opposed to as it was presented. I'm not totally opposed to the idea. So I'd like to, you know, get some more conversation about that, because there's some things I would like to see, you know, in regards to the museum and the library and stuff like that, and what we can do. So we can talk about that later. It's not, we talk about it now. I'm open, I have all night. The thing I really want an answer on is the LID, which is, I don't know, the 640 acres that the city now has and what we're going to do with it. Because, you know, I have an investor who has money, he'll pay us, he'll put an offer together this week if we want up 10 million for it. I'm like, well, it's 10 million, we get a lot of stuff done. Or do we put it out for bid and can we get more for it? For a piece of landlocked property that the city may not be able to do anything with. We get double paid. Well, it's investment. Okay, I forgot to preface this. I want this conversation to be open, forget the formalities. But, so investor, talked with him, he just wants to sink some money. He needs somewhere to put money for the time. My idea is landlocked anyways. He can't really do anything with it anyways. I would like to see some zoning stipulations attached to it, because I like the master plan community idea. So if he just wants to buy it and hold it, sure, I don't care what you do with it, if that's what you want. But if you do develop it, these are what the city is going to require. If the city will get paid when it's developed again. So we'll make our money off of that investment. And $10 million, I mean, there's a lot we can do with 10 million. That's fine, you can interject.
No, is it, Councilmember Blair had
I just had a statement on it. I think it's awesome that someone's interested in it, but setting up where we basically say, oh, you found someone, we're gonna sell it to them, I'm not on board with that.
Right, that's what
If we're
I'm
gonna
open
sell
to
it,
yeah,
if-
put in, I'm just saying, the
Which
guy
honestly-
approached me.
hold on, let's,
Yeah.
one at a time.
Honestly, I think we should sell it, but we can't do it in that way.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't, it looks dirty. I think if it's gonna, which I've said from the get-go, we need to sell this because we have no, I don't think we have any business holding that property. I think we need to sell it, put it on the market, and you're gonna get the offers you're gonna get. If this guy comes out, offers $10 million and no one else wants to offer that or more, then cool for you, dude. But as far as when it's developed, it's already set in stone, as far as I'm understand. It is what it is. Well, I don't think we don't need to add any additional stipulations on it. But as far as saying, oh, this guy wants to buy it, let's write up the contract, and no.
Right, yeah, I'm totally fine. I was saying, you just want to say, hey, I want to buy this. I'm like, sure. I'll sell it to you, but I wouldn't, because I want to get top dollar for it for the city. So I would say, yeah, let's put it up for bid. Maybe we'll get more than that.
So as kind of discussed in the council retreat, there's one big trigger, a couple triggers that need to happen. Water rights is being probably the biggest one. The other one's to go for studies, making sure that we
For
have.
development though, right? But not for selling it.
So, yeah, but we also want to make sure that we know exactly what we have as well, property wise. We want to know the value of it, what we can develop, what we can't develop on it. It's just, and there's plenty of developers that want to pay money for it. We just need to make sure that we go through the correct process and open, transparent process well, rather than, I know this buddy of mine that wants to buy it. Kind of what Jane was alluding to, but if the council does want to, what's the timeline on the study that we have to have completed?
HCP is about a year out.
Yeah, the year if everybody's quick and not us quick, because the reviewers are quick.
So,
They're probably longer.
you know, it's kind of discussed, that's one of the biggest things that we need to, my opinion, and I guess some of the others as well, that we should be waiting for. And at that time, if we want to, council wants to decide to put it up just for sale, do it. There's information that would be helpful for us. Not just for us as in the council, but for city as businesses that want it develop, they have go for habitat, we'd have that available for them. So there's a few different considerations, is just not, let's get rid of it right away. Go ahead, Councilor Richardson. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Goes down to this end, yeah, that's all I can.
Were you saying that that study won't be completed for another year, or that's the earliest it will get completed?
So I can't give you a.
No.
So I would hesitate to give you a timeline because it has to go through US Fish and Wildlife has to review it. It has to be reviewed by several people. We can get the study done quickly, but then the review process and the edits are what takes long. Similar to, you know, we started, just to give you an example, we started water rights process in 2008. It's 2022. So I'm just,
I
hope.
want to make sure.
It's not gonna be that long.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that long, but just prepare, prepare for the worst, hope for the best, right? That's what I'm doing.
I think I agree with the mayor on this one, that we need to, one, make sure that that study is done first before we even put it up. And I also believe we should have, in reference to this, we should be looking at a variety of other options and discuss them and try to get the community members to discuss it as well. Because, yeah, you're right, the master plan that was proposed in early 2000, in 2006, yeah, it was wonderful at the time. Things have changed. A lot of things have changed with our community and the way that our community is growing and various other things. So we really should, yes, it's nice that we have 640 acres. We might be able to make 10, 20, who knows how many millions of dollars off of it. But we also need to make sure that we do something that is right, not right now, but right for the future of the city. This is one of those decisions that takes a 10, 20-year look. What we want for this community. That's why I just want to say we should slow it down.
And I would have to agree with Councilor Hess on that. This is a huge impact on how this community is going to develop 50 years from now. The decision we're making here today, and I know I'm trying to grandstand, but it really is a huge impact for the city. The different directions we take. Please, Council.
We could sit on 640 acres for 100 years because it's landlocked and the people around it.
It's not going to be landlocked. That's not the big issue. That's not an
I'm
issue.
saying that's what could happen though.
It's not. The road,
It's not landlocked.
there's plans to go through it all the way. It's not gonna be. Anyway, Councilor Richardson.
Sorry, buddy.
I
I thought we have open space.
Yeah, my understanding too, once we get the studies done, the HCP Habitat Conservation Plan, and then the Gopher study, it's within we own this land, we get it done, we do it, right, city?
Say that again?
City already owns it.
We own the land, who's paying for the studies to get done?
We would.
We would, right? So after that's done, and then we decide to sell it, do they need to have those studies done again?
No, so that study isn't just, yeah, it's
Good
not.
selling point.
That's fair. But that also, it's part of a larger plan as well.
Right.
Not just that property, it's for like the whole city, if I'm correct.
But I would think that if we get that study done, which costs a lot of money, then all of a sudden, I think that would be more apt to sell the property after the study's been done. What do you think?
Yeah, well, the thing it's gonna determine is whether there's gophers on there or not. Whether there's land available for gophers, if we wanna place a little bit of that land for businesses to use as a bank, because they can't build right now. Certain businesses can't build on land that's habitat by these certain type of gophers, blah, 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 and all that. So. And we'll get to James, or excuse me, Councilmember Blair and then Crossman, but we can also just put this on the agenda rather than just put it up on council initiative like this. We can have a more in-depth conversation with actual preparation from staff rather than just off the cuff like this. Councilmember Blair.
I actually enjoy the off-the-cuff conversation regarding. One thing to think about rather than just throwing it out for sale, like they're saying. Once water rights come on and that study's done. Correct me if I'm wrong, can this parcel be divided up at all?
Yeah, that would be the idea. It would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you identify which land is the gopher spot. City retains that. City retains that. And now that you have the study done and water rights are in, the value of that land just went up. We hold the gopher spot, sell off the rest of it, and now made that. Now on top of that, everywhere that wants to develop, if it's still a gopher spot, they pay the city for a portion of that. The biggest thing is take that swap, if that's still alive, and throw it in the trash.
That's well. Councilmember Kaminsky.
I was just gonna say, if the timing had been different and we create our new city center over there, we wouldn't need to spend all the money on the bypass. Because we could just let the trucks go where they go now, because we have a different city center.
Well, it's part of the bypass. I mean, there's the northern part, which is what's coming up. There's also the southern, that's 1/4 of that. The other one would be behind like the Safeway area, or so not around that
But
Safeway
they
area.
decided not to do that part. I'm just saying, we wouldn't care how many trucks went down the main road anymore. We
This is-
create a whole new city center.
Yeah, but having that 4-lane, if we have that, continue that 4-lane through this property, all the way to the road that goes to that state highway that goes to Rainier, that's also a huge burden that's lifted off, traffic burden that's lifted off the main streets they can get there faster. The other side gets them to McKenna and Pierce County faster, but it doesn't. This way would also alleviate a lot of the traffic from the middle of town, rather than going all the way down and having to go right. This was on the great plan, the 2050 100-year plan. It's a long-term planning where it's basically like a diamond. The bypass of that big first half of it, and the other half was included in this master plan community. That's why we have 4 lanes right now for increased capacity. It's not just 4 lanes to get to those houses. It was meant to go all the way down to the state route, and that's how the plan still is. I would love to see that. I would urge council to also take that route and go to that direction. But yeah, we'll have more conversation on this, especially as we get closer, way before you're up, way before we get the actual study done. But as we keep going, we'll keep talking about it. We'll keep deciding what to do with it. Keep these meetings open and all transparent, all that stuff and what we discuss. Anything else, Councilmember Crossman?
Let's you wait for the Gopher study to see how much we gotta keep. And then we'll talk about putting up for sale.
That's one perspective, yeah.
One perspective idea, which I can be on board with. Because that will allow us more development in the city, so that could be a good thing. It's goofy as all get out. I think it's fun. Yeah, so let's plan to talk about the EIC sometime.
Councilmember Richardson.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be excited about that employee appreciation lunch tomorrow. 11:30 to 1:30?
11:30 to 1.
1, oh, 1, 11:30 to
Bringing that up.
You want us to wait till 1:30 for you?
I'll be there 11:30, no worries. And tomorrow is Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. All right, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Councilmember Blair.
Got a question regarding the gravel lot issue.
Gravel lot issue.
Mhm.
Which lot?
All of them.
All of them, just in general.
Okay.
So obviously, there's a couple that are grandfathered in. Is there a sunset clause on grandfather? I mean, to make this fair?
I don't believe so, but Cody, do you want to?
Yeah, so grandfathered is an inaccurate term. It's called existing non-conforming use. So what happens is a business that doesn't change its business, stays the same business, stays the same idea, never has to move up and conform with new rules. They don't have to do that until they change their business, upgrade, change of use. There's a different reason they'd have to do it. But if I had a little mom shop I opened down the street today, and 100 years, my kids kept running my shop and kept running a shop, they'd be able to stay under the same regulation I was under when I first opened that shop, as long as the shop doesn't change. Now my kids go, hey, I want to build a 2,000-foot expansion. They now have to conform with the new rules and put that expansion in. Yeah, so there is no sunset on the grandfather.
Can we set one?
So what you then do is you then punish businesses that were under a different rule set. It opens us up to a lawsuit.
I think they reap the benefits of not having to do it for however long it's been, that it's kind of like, hey, that'll just get rid of the rule, one or the other. Because at this point, it's like you got one, I don't like you. You got La Gitana with a gravel rock lot that has been there the whole time, and honestly, I don't care. But then you got 2 other places that they bought extra property and want to use it for that certain way, but they're getting bitched at and fined.
Language, please.
Excuse me, sorry. They're getting harassed and fined over it. We're not doing anything different than them. The only difference is they've had it that way for 20 years. Okay, well,
See it, Brian.
I understand the existing non-conforming use, but at some point it becomes, it just doesn't make any sense anymore. So I feel like this certain business, if it's, I don't even, when was, let's say it's been that way 15 years, and I'm just throwing a number out, I don't know how long it's been. If it's been that way for 15 years, at some point over the last 15 years, you can't tell me you haven't made enough money to pay your lot.
I can't tell you what the business can, and I can't tell you what I can tell you legally, we cannot require a business that came under, there's new building rules made every day, right? If we set a new building rule saying no buildings can be made out of wood, right? And then 10 years from now, we go, well, now all the buildings are made out of wood, you got to tear them down and put stone up, right? That is where you're protecting business owners. You're not putting them under punishment. It does seem unfair. I 100% see where you have a business that has a gravel lot and they go, why can they have a gravel lot? And it's because they've been there and you bought we wanted to bring you up to new standards, right? New rules are made all the time. You have things that happen and they create a new rule, right? Someone tries to run out of a fire and the door opens inward so they can't run out, everybody piles up at the door. A new rule's made saying, hey, your doors all have to swing out. Sprinkler systems have to be installed. Another example, we had a business that wanted to upgrade their business and put a residence in their business. They had to put sprinklers in because the building code back then didn't require sprinklers, but now their building is this giant building that now requires sprinklers. Hey, you're upgrading your business, you now have to put sprinkler system in. Those are the kind of things where we can catch them there, but we can't make them fix something that they were built legally under in the past. And it's a weird world, and we do our best to guide and help people, and we try to make it fair for everybody, and we want to keep small businesses appropriate. We want to help them as much as we can. We always work with them. The 2 lots you're mentioning specifically, I won't dive into too much detail, but we've been in constant contact with them and trying to help them getting to where they are. And we're making good progress with one of them and hopefully both of them. I mean, the city never just pulls the trigger off, right? We start at the very beginning. Hey, here's what you need to do. Tell us what you're doing. And the biggest thing we ask for, and I ask encouragement from all of council to do this. If someone's coming in, a business, anyone, and they want to do something, just let us know. If we know from day one what you're doing, we can help you 1000%. What gets people in a pickle is they do stuff and they don't tell the city. And then, I live in the city. I drive by and go, holy crud, what's this giant gravel lot? And then they got rid of all their plants. Where the heck is this coming from? And that's where we catch things like, we don't want to do that. We want you to come and go, I want to do this. And we go, here's how you get there. And it's super easy. We can get you there, but we have to know what's happening. And that's where we have some disconnect, is some of the businesses haven't been telling us what's happening. We catch.
So one more question regarding it.
Yeah.
I understand why. I just want to make that clear. The whole point is so you're not having rocks and stuff dragged out on your main road, then kicked up, you get a bunch of broken windshields. I understand that's why.
That's
one of the whys. There's
And then it also degrades down the road.
several other. So Yelm is a critical aquifer recharge area. All of Yelm has been set as a critical aquifer. Everything that goes into the grass or ground goes into the aquifer. It recharges our aquifer, right? So it has to be treated or counted for. So if you take grass or a dirt lot that water would permeate through and go to the aquifer, and you go, boom, here's a bunch of gravel, now water puddles and doesn't permeate, that water is no longer going to the aquifer, it's not recharging the aquifer. That's where the issues come in, is when you do that kind of thing, there's a stormwater report that has to be done. That's a federal law, state law. We can't fix that. You have to say, hey, I put a gravel lot, I paved this lot, here's where my stormwater is going. Because we are critical aquifer. If we imagine we go, everybody throw gravel everywhere. We change this whole place to gravel. In about 100, 200 years, the aquifer would be dry, and then no one would have water. So we're planning. This is all planning for the future. People don't, now they say, hey, you're punishing us. No, we're trying to protect the future for our kids, right? I mean, some people may not care about 100 years from now. Who cares what people happens? But we, as a city, we have to care, right? Because there's gonna be people here in your seats in 100 years, right? That are gonna be there and going, oh, I'm glad they kept our aquifer there and we still have water and no one else, these other places don't. But if we go, dang, they made everything and they let everybody put gravel down, no stormwater reports, that was great, but now we have no water. That sucks. So it's really a long-term planning thing where we're trying to protect the environment, and we're required by law to do it, to keep those aquifers recharged, have that going through. It may not seem like a lot with one lot, but you let one person do it, and then everyone will start doing it. We have to, I'm kind of standing on a podium here, but you know what I'm saying? You can't let one person do it or the whole chain. The broken window effect, I'm a firm believer in. You got to stop it at one. And that's exactly what we had with the two lots we're currently experiencing, because they said, well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it.
All right, we're gonna go to Councilmember Hess. You had a question?
Yes. I liked your examples that you gave. I want to go back to one of them and see if we might be able to use it to also help out with the issue that Councilmember Blair brought up. You brought up the fact of the door swings in, fire happens, and so we changed the code, all doors must open up. Isn't there also with that, because it's a safety factor and everything, that all businesses have to retrofit. In other words, it's not just, hey, you were built years before, this is a safety thing, so we have to actually have this. Is that not correct? Is that a way that we could go? Okay, so in reference to that, you brought up that we're a recharge. Not only were we recharge, but any contaminants that get into it contaminates the recharge water itself. We have the studies that are there. I mean, we've learned in the past 10 years, 15, 20 years, what's happening with our environment, correct? The ecosystem. Is there a way that we could not necessarily punish, but say, hey, due to, and we readjust the codes and we find other ways to help them out of, hey, we need, you just can't do this anymore. It has to change. And, we appreciate everything, but it kind of has to change due to your business is important. So is the aquifer. The moment that oils go into the aquifer, they're no longer able to be pumped. Okay, so that's what I'm wondering is, how can we address it in that fashion and not necessarily saying, hey, we're punishing you or we're making a change just because, well, as you put it, the broken window. We're saying, no, new information has come out. This is actually a hazard now. It is no longer a convenience. Is that
Yeah, so there are some things that can be in that aspect where there's things that have to be retrofitted or fixed, and there's normally state or federal money that helps you comply with those, right? Like fire or lead paint. Lead paint's a big one that happened where, hey, you have lead paint in your home, there's all these grants you can get the lead paint out and put in new paint. Those kind of things, they do have programs where they can help you get to where you need to be.
I'm just wondering if we could maybe, if this is a big concern, that maybe we look at a way of trying to see if there's a way to help them out.
Yeah, and I definitely think, the opportunity is there. We have a great chamber that can also help work with small businesses, and there's gotta be ways we can do that. I'm sure that, I'm sure if the city wanted to.
As I said, that's what I'm asking is that now we put it in instead of saying it's gravel and that's just the way it was. You were here for 15, 20, 25 years. So we're allowing it. Let's educate and go, no, we're doing this because it's the aquifer we sit on. You have a car come in and sits on that, and all of a sudden out come the contaminants. It's now a hazmat situation that it's not just our water. Who else grabs from our aquifer? The Nisqually tribe grabs from it. Lacey and Olympia grab from it. So we're damaging other cities that, we need to be proactive in a way.
And one option is to create a program like we did for this right here, seed it with $50,000 or $100,000 or so, and allow businesses to draw from that should council want. But anyway, Councilmember Crossman, then Blair.
I was something similar, I was just going to say, well, and that's the case, the city can give grants to people who take the lots because it is a public use thing, no nuisance,
As I
what
said,
have you.
let's look at another way. Let's,
Councilmember Blair,
Like-
had his hand up.
I was just gonna move on with the initiative part.
Moving on.
Continue, please.
You spaced it, bro. I'll think of it later.
It's about the end of the meeting now.
Adjourned.
Oh, not yet. We're gonna go to executive session, 15 minutes. Pursuant to, or executive session to discuss qualification of applicant for public employment pursuant to RCW 42.30.110 F1G. We will go retire, talk about that. Council members online, or Councilmember Roy, you should have a link in your email and it'll get, you have your laptop, hopefully. Check your email. If not, let me know. Shoot me a text, shoot me a call, and we'll get you on speakerphone or something. All right, we're back 15 minutes.
The executive session has been extended for an additional 10 minutes and the council meeting will resume at 8:14.
All righty. You're now back from executive session. Do you move, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
We don't need
Me
to.
too, it's.
So moved. Adjourned.
Adjourned.